All right, welcome back to Touchdown Ontario's off-season series here, previewing the OSFL divisions. It's brought to you here on TYSN, brought to you by Football Ontario, and I have a very special guest, Mike Schmidt, the retired coach from Cumberland, retired president from Cumberland, Schmidt. Obviously, you've taken a step away from the game of football this past year, but you're thankful enough to join us on this and help us break down this OSFL. And this is going to be a great exercise for us to do. But how are you doing, and how's life been after football so far?
Hey, thanks. First of all, thanks for having me, guys. This is so much fun. Yeah, I mean, I did a couple segments with you last year in 2024, and we just had a blast doing it. So, yeah, just taking a step back from coaching, from the executive levels on in the leagues and stuff like that, just to focus on some other ventures and focus more on my family and stuff like that. I got my kids are getting older, and they kind of need me. So it was an absolute tough decision. I love the game, and I love the league, and I love everything about our football community. So it was really, really tough decision to make, but one that I hope for the better, and hope to get into some new ventures like this one that we're doing here. So all in all, since we last talked, hey, things haven't been better. It's been really fun. The support that I've had from my friends and my family, and the football community itself on reaching that decision had just been top shelf. So I love everybody that have been around and supported me, and it's the bigger, better things. So super excited about it.
Well, we really appreciate you for coming on here again, Schmidt, and kind of joining the TYSN content team this season. I expect to see Mike a lot more on these kind of things. Obviously, he brings a ton of knowledge to the sport, not only with Cumberland, but with all these other teams. I mean, you served on the OSFL board. You've done a lot for football in this province, and we wanted to thank you for all you've done. See the downpour of support whenever you posted that you'd be stepping away. It just goes to show the impact you've had on this football community. But now we're excited to have you on the TYSN content team doing some of this stuff. And I'm going to kind of break down what we're going to be doing here today for the audience. So we're going to be previewing these OSFL divisions, going team by team, and really breaking down what's on the horizon for 2025. And what better place to start than the U18 AAA East? Two teams that we've been involved with in our lives, Schmidt, are in this division in Cumberland and Cornwall. So it'll be a fun exercise for us to go through here. And a good place to start is kind of recapping the 2024 outlook and how things ended there last season. So obviously Durham took the cake last year at this division. Actually the first East team in 3 years to actually make the provincial championship and represent the East in that provincial championship game. So that was a very good send-off for them. Obviously, they end up falling short in that game to London. But overall, Schmidt, what's your take on this division in 2025? Obviously, the West gets a lot of the praise, and they have a lot of good football over there, but so does the East, man. Teams like Cumberland, Cornwall, Kingston, Durham. What's your take on this division heading into 2025?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I think a lot of the talk around the league is always about the West in these conversations in that division. I mean, you look at teams like Hamilton and Essex and London. I mean, they're always competing. And you throw Cambridge in there and Burlington in there, and I mean, those are some powers, and it speaks volumes because a lot of those players are going to the next level. You constantly are seeing a bunch of players that are playing for these clubs in the summer, repping their high schools, and then in the next year or two they're committing to some top tier programs like Laurier and Western and Windsor and all these teams. So yeah, but that's the West, and that's another discussion for another date. No denying it. Top tier, top shelf programs throughout the entire province. But yeah, we got some powerhouses out here in the East too. And you said some of them. Durham, Kingston last year. Actually, Kingston over the past 3 years at the senior division has just been coming on strong and a very, very strong showing last year, which I hope that they'll be able to improve on. So you throw Cornwall, Myers, and Cumberland into that mix. Next thing you got 4 or 5 really, really top shelf programs, and I've been following Brampton Bulldogs at the U18 level, and from their socials, looks like they got some stuff. So I'm excited to talk about them as well. And you always got the ever scrappy Oshawa and Scarborough that can compete at times, but can definitely break some teams' dreams. I think when you get into some tight games. So it's anybody's division going into 2025, as it should be.
Absolutely. Well, let's give a quick recap on the 2024 season for everybody watching, and then we'll kind of move on to talking about these teams individually. So obviously we mentioned Durham at the top. They make it to the provincial championship. They ended up losing to London. They finished with a record of 7-0-1 in the 2024 season. Right behind them was Kingston at 7-1. And those two teams, oddly enough, didn't play in the 2024 season. They're scheduled to play this season, so that'll be a matchup to watch. Right behind them, the Wildcats 5-3, Cumberland 3-5, Myers 3-5, Oshawa 2-6, Brampton 1-7, and Scarborough 0-7-1. So, last season, looking at it, you've seen it the last 3 years. It's really been a race to the finish with Durham, Cornwall, Kingston, Cumberland, Myers. Schmitty, I guess before we break these teams down individually, do you see that changing at all? Do you see maybe a Brampton, a Scarborough, an Oshawa maybe jolting up and trying to battle for one of those top 4 spots that end up making the playoffs out of the East?
When you look at the success of any team in its current year, you have to look at obviously last year who are their rookies that made some impacts in the previous season that are looking to take more of a role this coming season, and what about the other age divisions? What about the graduating U16s that are coming up? Are they ready to play at the U18 level? It's a 3-year age gap at the U18s. Are they ready to step in as a rookie and compete? And every year there's stud players that are at the U16 that come in and are a force. So history says that it's probably going to be those teams, but I always like to root for the underdog, and I like to see some of these guys that are coming up and making an impact for their team. Most of these coaching staffs are still intact from last year, which is a very positive thing. Coaches looking to build on successes. Coaches looking to learn from last year and change some of the culture of the team going forward. So I can't see too much changing from those ranks, but always excited to see who will step up and seize that moment, right?
Absolutely, and I think it's important to touch on that. Obviously, the West has been very dominant for the last 3 years since the OSFL's inception at this age group in particular. But if you look in recent memory, like the OVFL and things of that nature back then, I mean, some of the biggest powerhouses coming out of there were from the East. I mean, Myers had a great run of dominance. The Toronto Thunder back then were very good. Kingston's always been good. Cornwall's always been competitive. Cumberland. So you look at these teams, right, and maybe in recent years they haven't been able to reach that peak and win a championship at this age group. But it's there. The foundation is set there. These teams take a lot of pride. These are some of the oldest established Ontario clubs throughout the province. So I'm excited for this division. Obviously, we're both from this division, and we know how it goes down. We know the rivalries in this division. Our two teams in particular have a huge rivalry, and I'm excited to talk about that a little bit later. But I think without further ado here, Schmitty, let's get into these teams, and what better place to start than the Durham Dolphins? We talked about them a little bit. They finished with a regular season record of 7-0-1. I believe the game against Scarborough was a cancellation, and that's why it ended up in a tie last year. So I believe they probably would have been undefeated heading into the playoffs. And then
they didn't have a loss, so we can call them undefeated.
Yeah, they were undefeated until they met London, right? So and the interesting thing I wanted to talk about with Durham is when they made it to the playoffs. A lot of the teams. A lot of the conversation around is like, hey, it's only a matter of time when we get to the playoffs. It's probably going to be 2 West teams in this provincial championship. And that's what we've seen the last 2 years before last year at this age group. But the interesting thing about Durham, what I wanted to touch on at the top here, when they made it to the playoffs, they beat 2 of the best West teams to make it to Waterloo to play London. They beat Cambridge, and then they beat Hamilton, who were the defending provincial champions. So this team is no joke, and maybe we can kick it off here, Schmitty. I'm sure you've seen this team, but their quarterback play last year, led by Ben Castleman, the Western Mustang commit, was just absolutely superb. Him and those receivers on the same page all season long. Obviously, they lose Ben Castleman this year, but from an outside glance here, Schmitty, getting to see this team and obviously play them at younger age groups as well, what made them so difficult to deal with in 2024?
Well, you know what? When I compare the two divisions, the East and the West divisions, one thing that really stands out to me was the difference between the East's offenses and the West's defenses. So you had I think it was the top. If I look at a league structure in total, the top defenses were all out of the West, whereas most of the top offenses were out in the East, and Durham over 300 points for. So, I mean, they put up points and they knew how to put up points. And when I see teams that put up a lot of points, I look at the coaching strategy, control the run, control the clock, control the field position, control the game. Bert Smith out there in Durham does that. He thinks about that type of stuff. He game plans, and he watches film, no doubtedly religiously, and so he's well prepared for his opponents. But yeah, man, that offense was clicking last year. Ben Castleman, easily, Western commit, easily one of the top quarterbacks in the province at that age group. And Western doesn't slouch on their quarterback play. If you look at top U Sports quarterbacks, a lot of them are coming out of Western over the past, better part of the past 2 decades. So they know what they got in him, and man, Durham is going to miss that play. But from that being said, they got 4 quarterbacks that are coming into camp this year, and when you have that type of competition at that position, I mean, good things are going to come, and that's something that I think Coach Smith is really going to cherish and value this preseason, and they'll be full gas coming into week 1.
And Schmitty, whenever you see, I'm not sure if any of these quarterbacks were on the roster last season behind Ben Castleman, but is there something to be said about the foundation being laid by a quarterback in that program who ends up leaving for a new quarterback coming in? Can he see the ground rules being set by that previous quarterback? I mean, we've seen the success that Castleman had. Is there a lot of pressure on the next quarterback stepping in? What are your thoughts there?
It's a great question, and I've been on staffs where we've been blessed with 2, even 3 quarterbacks that could start on many teams. So again, I'm like you. I'm not too sure who the quarterbacks are that are competing. But if 1 or 2 of them were with last year's team, and they had, and I use this word, an opportunity to sit back, to learn, to watch, to watch film, and to really learn and be given the opportunity to say, all right, this is your time. This is your time. Now, what I do like about what's happening with the Durham's offense is their receiving core is coming back. They have both of their leading receivers that are coming back. They have their running backs that are coming back. So although you're missing that commander, that team leader in Castleman, you got a couple guys, 3 or 4, even 5 guys, veteran presence that are staying back, and I think they're going to be all right. I'm not worried about them at all on offense. I think they're going to be a high octane. Now, can their O-line, who in my opinion is the anchor of any offense, can their O-line take them to that championship? Because if they got the receivers, they got the running back, and they got a capable quarterback, can that O-line complete that offense into a juggernaut? And only time will tell about that.
Absolutely, and you touched on it there a bit there, Schmitty, but as you mentioned, they do bring back both of their leading receivers in TYSN Clark and Ethan Garway. And when I quote from Bert Smith, we got a quote from him: "Our receiving core will be just as explosive as it was in 2024. Healthy running backs will also contribute significantly to any success, and the D-line should be the strength of their defense." So it'll be very interesting to see if Durham can replicate the success from last year. Also, a nice tidbit of information here. The Finns are adding Canadian NFL vet and TYSN analyst Luke Wilson, the tight end from the Seahawks, to their coaching staff. I don't know if that's just a preseason thing, but that's a pretty cool tidbit of information to have out of Durham's camp.
I saw that. I saw some of that on social media, and then when we were researching, you confirmed that. Hey, I'm a Seahawks fan. I've been a Seahawks fan.
Oh, there we go.
So to see a name like Luke Wilson on a coaching staff and find out that it was him, a little bit jealous. I mean, these guys are going to be learning from a guy that has done it all. I think he's from the Windsor region,
yes.
if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, he played high school there, no doubtedly, maybe even community ball.
Yeah, close with Glenn. Yeah.
There you go, and at Essex, and to go from those stages, and he's not too far removed from his playing days. I think he's only been retired for a few years. So to be able to learn from a guy like that who has been where these players are and be where some of these players want to go, man, that's just a massive, valuable asset. So the U18 team in Durham, man, they're a lucky bunch.
Absolutely. Well, we'll get to predictions a little bit later here, folks. Me and Schmitty are going to give our predictions, but obviously this Durham team is going to be contending once again. But ultimately, I do think it falls on the shoulders of the new quarterback coming in, because I think Castleman went above and beyond for this team and was probably the reason that they got to that level. Not to say that these other skill position players or their defense didn't play a factor. He was a first team OSFL All-Star for a reason, right? And he brought his. You know what I mean? So it's going to be a tough loss. We'll see how they manage it. It seems like they have the pieces in place. So we'll touch on Durham a little bit later whenever we get our predictions in. But let's move on to another team who has kind of flown under the radar, I'd say, Schmitty, with how good they've been at this division for so long. But the Kingston Grenadiers, man, they were 7-1 last season. I believe their only loss was coming to London in the regular season. They didn't play Durham, which I found was weird, but whatever. We'll get to see that matchup this year. Obviously, Schmitty, you've played Kingston a lot at these levels. This is a team that's in close proximity to Ottawa. A classic rivalry of Cornwall, of Ottawa, of Cumberland, of Myers. What have you seen out of that camp over these last few years? I mean, year in and year out, they're one of the toughest teams to deal with. They fly under the radar, and after the end of the season, you're looking, oh my God, Kingston's got 7 wins again. What are your thoughts on them?
They're like you said, they fly under there. They're pesky, They're this pesky little team that does everything they can to win. The Panthers played them twice last year. We lost them both times. The first game was I'll admit, a bit of a blowout. I think our U18 team at the Panthers really took them maybe for granted a little bit. However, the second time they played near the end of the season, it was a lot less. Very, very tight game. I think it was 3 or 4 point difference. Just a team that does the fundamentals very, very well. Massive old line. Last year, their running game was outstanding, and they were up there as well for offensive points. When I think 177 points for, if I'm not mistaken. They 144 points. 278.
278, yeah.
278, my bad.
Yeah.
Which makes them the second most potent offense in the league when it comes to scoring. And their defense too was one of the best in the East as well. So I mean, they got the fundamentals down. I said earlier, one of my things, a philosophy for coaching, control the clock, control field position, and control the run. While controlling the run makes you a very, very powerful team. And Kingston really does that very, very well. We got a quote from their head coach, and that it basically says that he's committed to bringing the Grens a team that they can be proud of on and off the field. He also added they're going to set the bar very high in everything that they do, and it's his job and his coach's job to develop their players and identify the right kids and put them in the best positions for success. And he strongly feels that if he follows that regime, success is going to happen organically, and he's not wrong. I've seen it with my own eyes with many, many teams, and you build the culture, you get the players to buy in, and success does happen organically. And the Kingston organization has a head coach there that is extremely committed to doing that, and the results are going to come as a result. The results are going to come.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to maybe touch on, how different these two top East teams were in 2024. Like, obviously Durham, we're going to spread you out and use their plethora of talented receivers. Kingston, I mean, they're going to line up in I form, man, and they're just going to beat you up. Like that's kind of what their philosophy is offensively, at least the past couple of years. And we touched on it a little bit, but 17-5 record over the past 3 seasons at this division in the regular season. I mean, it's impressive, man, and I don't think I think Kingston maybe gets slept on a lot.
I agree.
But I think their track record shows they're one of the best provincial teams in the entire province for over the last 3 seasons. So it'll be exciting.
And also from what I understand there too with that team is they get a lot of buy-in at their U16 levels too. They got 80, 90, 100 kids that are trying out for the U16 team, and that's just a natural pathway for their U18 team. So the organization does a really good job at developing and preparing their players for the next levels as they come along. And they just they're a smaller community as well when it comes to the grand scope of the OSFL. Kingston's not a multi-million population city, so it's really nice to see that they have a good relationship with their community, great relationship with Queens, and all that kind of stuff. And they run a very, very nice program. I've always enjoyed going to Kingston to play them. It's
for sure.
They got a good thing going there.
For sure, yeah, and I remember playing for the Wildcats OVFL and them coming in, and those were, I mean, you were waking up sore in the morning. Like, those were battles, man. Like, as much as we battled with Cumberland and Meyer, like, I'd say these 4 teams, Schmitty, the Wildcats, the Grens, the Myers, and Cumberland. There's a natural rivalry there, just geographically with how close those 4 teams are. And then for the other 4 teams in the GTA, it's the same thing. So I really like that split in the East, where it's like you have this side of the rivalry and this side of the rivalry, and it's awesome to see. But yeah, I think that's all we really have on Kingston. I mean, we'll talk about them a little bit more on our prediction side of things as well. But just year in and year out, just a very talented team. They're going to be another tough out. And that's just the reality of it. That's the way that they coach their football down there. But let's move on to another small program here, Schmitty. And my beloved,
if I'm not mistaken,
the smallest, yes, my beloved Cornwall Wildcats, who finished the regular season at 5-3 last season, kind of taking a little bit of a step down from 2023, which was easily the best year of Cornwall football provincially that they've had. Whenever they went undefeated in the regular season, making it to the semifinals of the playoffs. But still, another great team year in and year out for what they're able to accomplish, for how small they are in geographical size. I can speak firsthand from playing for them and still living in the area. The Wildcats' pride is real, man, and they take pride in being that small. You know what I mean? Organization that's playing these Goliaths, and they're the David, right? So it's been very impressive to see them take that jump. And for a matter of fact too, Schmitty, I was actually at the first game of the season last year where they played Cumberland. That game went to double OT in Cornwall. That was a fantastic game, and that's a rivalry that we'll have to keep an eye on. But Schmitty, obviously a lot of the Cornwall guys there. What's your take on them year in and year out, and how do you think they continue to be so successful being such a small area team?
Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of been jealous of Cornwall and how they run things out there. I mean, they get exactly what you said, small community, but they all buy in. They got so much love and support from their small town that it just makes it easy for guys, their president Kirby, to put a product on the field. They got phenomenal coaching. They've recruited some high-level coaches, youth sports coaches. I believe their offensive coordinator this year is Scott Westlake, who was with Ottawa U for quite some time. Their defensive coordinator, Phil Roberts, who was also with Ottawa U for a long time, probably a better part of 2 decades. So, these guys know what they're doing. They've coached at high-level teams, and they know. Alex Labonte, their head coach, I think the only head coach that club has known at this level with the OSFL. He also played high level, so these guys know what it takes to win. They know what it takes to coach, and when you're a player in an atmosphere like that, I mean, it's contagious, and they really feed off of that, and have had some major success over the past 2 seasons for sure. I mean, they were, like you said, a game away from having a better record on 2 occasions last season, and that incredible 2023 season as well. So. Don't sleep on them. Like that's the message of the day to everybody who plays them. Going into their environment it's hostile. I mean, it's not for a visiting team to be comfortable. You go in there, one of the very, very few teams, if the only team that still plays on a beautiful natural grass field.
Yep.
It's small. It's nothing special. It's not going to win any awards for being big and the best, but that's probably what makes it work.
Right.
And it's not fun playing there. I've played there before as a coach, and the fans can be ruthless at times, and the atmosphere can be hostile. But you know what? I like it, and that's great, and it's a true testament to what Kirby and his crew are doing down there to bring high level Ontario provincial football to a small community like that is not easy, and they do it very, very well. Very well.
Yeah, it's perfectly put, Schmitty. I echo that same sentiment. A little bit more on the team, though, as far as the team goes. You mentioned Kirby. Obviously, he's done a great job with the program. His 2 sons, his twin boys, are I believe, playing in their last OSFL seasons this season. Both provincial all-stars last season in the OSFL. Carter, who plays fullback, kind of a fullback tight end role. He does a great job blocking and catching the football. And then Reed on the other side of the football playing linebacker. They're kind of the dynamic duo, really leading that organization. They're basically just Kirby on the field. You know what I mean?
And I think they're both CJEP commits.
CJEP, yeah. John Abbott, yeah.
So that's just down the road, just on this side of Montreal. So again, just next level football, and that John Abbott school out there is doing some good things too. They come into Ottawa quite often. They recruit a lot of Ottawa guys.
Yeah.
So that's really really good too. One of the things when we were talking to them, one of the players that they were excited to have return was their kicker, Zach Obey.
Yes.
We don't. Obviously, nobody really talks about kickers all that much, but I got to tell you how valuable it is to have a Mr. Automatic on your team when you're when you want those extra points, when you want to kick a field goal from 20, 30 yards. There's some teams that they're on the 30-yard line and it's 3rd down, and they're going for it because they don't have a reliable.
It's not in their playbook.
It's not in their playbook, and so for their staff to highlight a kicker, I found that quite interesting, and it's great that they have the confidence to promote this, to promote Zach, and to really tell guys, we're gonna kick 30-yard field goals, we're gonna kick 40-yard field goals, and we might even try more. And as a coach, you got to be prepared for that on 3rd down. A game plan going in on defense when you're deep in your own end zone. Your play calls change, and if the team has a kicker that can make those crucial kicks, I mean that speaks volumes. Sometimes I don't care if you win 50-0 or if you win 3-0. Wins
right. It doesn't matter,
and that's what matters. And if you have that guy that can put up some points, that's very reliable stuff.
Yeah, and one thing about Zach Aubin too, obviously is an amazing kicker. And I go back actually to that week 1 game that I was at against Cumberland. He drilled, I want to say, a 35-plus yarder, and I was on the Wildcat sideline watching the game, and there was nobody that was like stressing about that kick to win the game. Like they trotted him on, and they're already taking their pads off, right? Like that's how good of a kicker he was. But he also does play slot back, so I think having him in there in that offensive role and kind of being probably his last year in the OSFL at this age group, he'll probably even get more run as a slot back, and maybe even see him doing both. But yeah, to highlight an OSFL All-Star kicker, I think it is important, Schmitty. And if you watch the NFL and the CFL, like how many games come down to a kick at the end of the game? Like there's so many.
What a cool moment for a kicker, eh? Double overtime. You're 17 years old. Double overtime.
Yep.
go get us the 3 points to get us.
Go beat Cumberland. Go beat Cumberland.
What a moment, eh? So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool that he had that moment. That's really cool for him that it was a successful moment. So yeah, good stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing what Cornwall puts on the field this year for sure.
100%. And what better segue from going from my beloved Wildcats to your beloved Cumberland Panthers. And Schmitty, I'm going to give you the floor here a little bit because I'll preface this by saying Cumberland finished 3-5 last season. Obviously, that's not in Cumberland's program standard. You see U14, U16, both of those squads making it to back-to-back provincial championships in the OSFL. Schmitty, you can talk a little bit more about the team, but what does this age group need to do to kind of replicate the success that the U14 and U16 squads have had over the past 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the record and you automatically think that it was a disappointing season. It really wasn't. I mean, a lot of the games were close. There weren't, there weren't a lot of blowouts. Games were, maybe one or two, but games could have gone either way. And they were a score away from winning. They were a score away from losing. So I mean, the record is the record, but it is what it is. It was an up and down season. And they had a decent roster that just couldn't come together, and that's okay. It happens. We've seen high expectations from a lot of teams, and they just don't pan out, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Last year's coaching staff was excellent. A bunch of great guys moved on to bigger things for their own coaching. I know the head coach from last year, Julian De Silva, has taken a bigger role with Carleton University. So he didn't have the time to return and dedicate what he wanted to do this season. He just couldn't do because of some other commitments, and that's okay. This is life. You move on and you get better and you move on to opportunities. So I think the entire Panthers organization is extremely excited about new head coach at the U18, Tony Canonico. He was the head coach of the U16 team from 2024 last season that went to the provincial championship, and he was the head coach of the U14 team prior to in 2022, which won the U14. So he's got a proven track record of winning. The coaches that he has, unreal. Some of these names are big names in the local Ottawa community. Some from some former U Sports coaches to some former CFL coaches to some former CFL players. So he's got a plethora of guys that he can rely on to make this team great. But something that is a true fact is it's rebuild. It's a rebuild year with a brand new coaching staff. Every coach is new, and he had to recruit his butt off. But I got to tell you one thing that I know about Tony is he does do that. He's relentless on the recruiting, and man, oh man, has he done a pretty good job this year at doing that. He really hit the high school circuit at the tail end of last year, and got a ton of local all-stars, from St. Peter's High School here in Ottawa, St. Matthew's Tigers here, and St. Joseph Jaguars here. So a lot of players that he targeted come from these three teams, which were the three of the best teams here in Ottawa when it comes to high school. So I'm excited for what he's going to put on the field.
And Schmitty, maybe talk a little bit about, I know that Tony's son Gabriel was an absolute star tailback on that U16 team last season. Will he be making the jump up to U18 with him, or is he still a U16 player?
So he is going to be playing up this year to join that team. He's got a good opportunity at getting to prep school this coming September of 2025. So I think they're preparing for that. So he'll be missed at U16 because he does have a year of eligibility. But playing up is not always a bad thing either. So he'll do that. I think less playing time this year, more learning, I think is the game plan there. So I wouldn't put a lot of weight into, as good of a player as he is, I wouldn't put a lot of weight on him being extremely impactful, but he's got depth at that running back position, and if there's one thing I know about Gabriel is he's a workaholic when it comes to the sport, so he never complains. He sits there, he learns, and he's going to eat that role up perfectly, so no issues there.
And then I seen, Coach Tony submit a couple of quarterbacks to watch for this Cumberland team, but the one that I really wanted to touch on is Ashton St. Germain, who I believe recently committed to Queens. And I got the opportunity, TYSN got the opportunity to film the last Ottawa championship game. And what a standout quarterback he is, man. Do you see him taking that starting role over this season and maybe getting the Panthers at this age group over the hump?
Well, we talked about when we were talking about Durham. We talked about having 4 quarterbacks for Durham come in to compete for camp, and the Panthers have the exact same thing. You have Ashton St. Germain. You're right, just committed to Queens, quarterback of the St. Joseph Jaguars for the past 3 seasons. Most recently, a second-team Ontario All-Star that was just actually released a couple days yesterday, I think. So he's. I'll call him the second best quarterback in Ontario at the high school. They voted for him, so he is. They got a really good up and coming quarterback from the St. Matthews Tigers, Anastasio, who's going to be in there to commit, and they have a veteran quarterback present with Z Rana, who's made some rounds here in the Ottawa ranks. I believe he went to Mount Allison, if I'm not mistaken, to play a season before transferring over to Ottawa U before coming to the Panthers. So he's been around, and he's going to provide that veteran presence. So it's going to be interesting at the quarterback position for Cumberland, and who's going to win that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the cool things about Cumberland, I always thought was how much competition there is, but I think the competition, the internal competition, really breeds excellence and breeds success. I mean, you see at the younger levels, how many standout players that the U16 and U14 Cumberland teams usually have, and look how it usually ends up for them. I mean, they're making provincial championships, so it's going to be interesting to see this varsity team. I know they're gearing to try and take that next step and kind of emulate what U14 and U16 has done, and Tony's the perfect example of that, being part of both of those organizations. So let's see if he can bring all of that knowledge up there. But I kind of wanted to hit on this quote I thought was very interesting. Positivity is the strength of this team this year. A new coaching staff with a fresh start and an open mind to all players involved with a family atmosphere. We are all in as coaches and players, and they also have tremendous talent at all positions. We are hoping and believing in a real turnaround this season. So, obviously, those are just words, but I believe in the culture of this U18 team. And maybe, Schmitty, to wrap this up, you can kind of mention some of the standout players that you can foresee on this Cumberland team here in 2025.
I'm with you. I'm a true believer in culture and positive culture, and when you promote that, and the results speak for themselves. And Tony and his guys do such a great job at that. One thing that when we were doing the research, and I was talking to Coach, and he was telling me about some of his players, and some of these guys are ballers, certified ballers. I mean, I'd like to talk about a veteran presence on the defense. One of their DBs, Dylan Miller, very recently, just last week, commit to Queens. Queens has such a pipeline in Ottawa. It's outstanding.
It's crazy. Yeah,
you got a former longtime Panther as well as a longtime St. Peter Knight, who's a Laurier commit in Solomon Alphonsus. Great linebacker, can play some DB. Sam linebacker, exciting player to watch, electrifying returner. So he's going to be really great to watch. You got Keegan Brunet, who is a receiver. He was on our team last year. Was one of the leading receivers. He's only gotten better. He's a Carleton Raven commit. He's going to be. Watch out! He's going to do some great things, especially with the quarterbacks that this team has. That receiving combo is going to be really, really good. Carter Surowich, who's out of St. Joseph Jaguars. He was the only Ottawa first team high school Ontario All-Star. So one of the best up and coming grade 12s in Ottawa is also on this roster. So if that chemistry comes together with the quarterback and the receivers, and the depth at running back, and you know the O-line that's coming out. You know their center is a commit as well to out east, Jacob Lalonde. You got a real feisty player in Mohamed Tantouche, who's going to play a little bit of tackle, a little bit of guard. I mean, these guys are going to be all right, and they're going to be fun to watch. And I guarantee that 3-5 record will be at bare minimum 5-3 this year. So,
look at that.
Sorry, I'm going to say 5-2. I forgot about the 7 games.
Oh yeah, it's only 7 games. Yeah,
5-2. So I think that they're gonna if they can compete with Durham, and they can beat Kingston, I think that watch out for the West. This is a playoff team, no doubt in my mind.
Well, look at that! You heard it here first, Mike Schmidt with the prediction of the episode so far, saying Cumberland guarantee them in the playoffs. So yeah, listen, I'm with you there, Schmitty. I mean, this Cumberland team at all levels is such a treat to watch, the way they do things over there. But let's move on to a team that is not going to want Cumberland to do what we just said in this East Division, and that's the Ottawa Myers Riders, who similarly to Cumberland finished with a 3-5 record this past season. They bring back head coach Christian Nally, who's been there for a very long time with them, and also add offensive coordinator Ron Raymond, who I had the pleasure of calling the high school championships with. He was my broadcast partner, so that's an interesting tidbit of information. But Schmitty, before we kind of break down this team, obviously the success that Myers had, and I'd say the 2010s, even earlier than that, at this age group specifically, I mean, they were an absolute dynasty back then. And we've seen things kind of shift a little bit in recent years. How do you see this team competing this season, and how can they get back to their old selves of these dominant Myers Riders teams from like the 2010s and earlier?
Yeah, I mean, they have such a rich tradition of success and winning. It's hard to keep them out of any conversation when it comes to competition. You know, that coaching staff is a great staff as well. You know, you talked about head coach Christian Nally. You know, bringing on Ron Raymond as his offensive coordinator, who is a little bit known around Ottawa as a bit of a quarterback guru. So you know he helps quarterbacks, and he knows what it takes to have a quarterback with great mechanics. And I don't think there's anybody in any league, let alone the U18 division, if you talk to any coach, he'll tell you that having a capable quarterback is everything. And if you have that quarterback coach that is dedicated to the success of his guy and is working with them 3, 4, 5 times a week, that speaks volumes. So it's going to be interesting to see what Myers can do. You know, when I noticed some of their commitments have come from the O-line, I think they're putting a heavy target on the O-line, which is fantastic to see. I mean, like any offense, you're not going to be successful if you don't have the Hoggies up front to push and to block and to protect, and that's a big one. They got a huge recruit in probably one of Ontario's highly recruited right tackles in Luke McAvoy. So I look to Myers to continue their offensive success in quarterback play as well as running the ball. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe we could touch on a little bit here, Schmidt. I always found it interesting for the OSFL, the recruiting battle between Cumberland and Myers. You know, what sways these athletes within the problem? Because you see the commitments come out from both of these teams, and a lot of these players are teammates in obviously our Ottawa local league, NCAFA, in the fall. Like, I look at Braxton Herbison from the Myers Riders. I believe, was he not a Canada Knight at varsity with Dylan Miller and things? So I think that's really a cool tidbit of information to be like, you know, a lot of teammates are going to be playing against each other on Myers and Ottawa in the summer, and I always found that really cool to keep tabs on leading up to the recruitments.
Yeah, it's a battle. It's a battle that really starts the previous season. You know, here in Ottawa we obviously have our high school programs, but we're one of the few regions, I guess, that has a U18 division in the city league. So it gives the players choices and options. You know, not every high school here in Ottawa has a high school football program, and so those guys aren't able to play for a high school. So the community level is a great venue for these players. So you're right. It's no different from, you know, I look at Oshawa and Durham and their, you know, their wars that they go to with recruiting as well, and you know, especially at the younger levels, it's very, very similar here in Ottawa. Yeah. And it really comes down, in my honest opinion, it comes down to the effort of the head coaches and their staff. It can't just all be on the head coach to recruit. It has to be on the coordinators. It has to be on the position guys. It has to be everything. And how are you going to talk to these players and their families to make it a right fit for them? You know, when you're recruiting a 14-year-old to play on the U14 team, you know, it's what fits for him and his family and his parents. Mm-hmm. His parents ultimately have to drive him everywhere. Right. When you're recruiting a U18, you know, it's more what's the best fit for the player. How can we help you get to the next level? How can we evolve your game? A little bit less parental interference, oversight, if you will, to land that player. So, you know, there's a lot of different recruiting tactics as the age levels go up, you know, and obviously, you know, talking to the players and what's the right fit for you, what's the right fit for your family, and how can we help you reach your goals. So, and I have no doubt in my mind that both coaches in this city do a great job at doing that, and it shows with the on-field performance over, you know, not just this year, last year, and the year before, but over the better half of the past 2 decades. You know, when you say Myers and Cumberland and the success they've had on the provincial stage, you know, peaks and valleys. For sure. It just happens to be Cumberland's time over the past few years. There's nothing to say that it won't be Myers' time over the next few. So.
For sure, yeah, and I always thought it was interesting because, you know, we've seen the two parallels. We've seen kind of Myers dominate this region for a long time earlier in the 2010s, and then we kind of seen Cumberland take that shift away from them. So you're right. I think it's really on the coaches and from my purview, even as a Wildcat, you know, and playing Cornwall football. This is one of my favorite rivalries to watch every year, man. Like the Cumberland versus Myers, it's a year-round thing. It's obviously in good-hearted spirit. Like a lot of these players play together. A lot of these coaches have coached together. They've played together in the past. But all year round, man, if you're wearing the red and black, if you're wearing the blue and white, there's just a natural rivalry there, man. And I foresee both of these teams. We're on Myers right now, but I foresee both of these teams taking a step up and improving this season. So I think both of these teams can compete, and it might come down to the matchup between these two teams. And what better can you ask for as an Ottawa football fan, but also as a provincial stage, because, you know, Ottawa's shown success of being one of the premier destinations for provincial football. Like it's just the reality of it. So I can't wait to watch this Myers team against this Cumberland team that we just talked about. But I think that's all I got for the Ottawa rivalry. Let's move on to the rest of the East Division. We have 3 more GTA teams here to cover. Schmitty, starting off with the Oshawa Hawkeyes. We're going in order, by the way, folks listening, of last year's record. So next up is the Oshawa Hawkeyes. They finished with a 2-6 regular season record in 2024. I got to watch their game against Cornwall. They were actually very gritty, very tough team to contend with. They were giving the Wildcats all they could handle until Cornwall pulled away late in the third and fourth quarter. But they were led by a great rushing attack by Cooper Mann, who was actually an honorable mention on the OSFL All-Star list. And I know they have a ton of talent, Schmitty, especially over the past couple of years at the U14 and U16 age group. I remember a couple of years ago when your Cumberland organization at U14 had the best team in the province. Oshawa was actually one of the teams contending and actually putting up a fight, and you know, there were some real scares there of maybe them taking over. And I know those players have moved up to U16. Not sure if they moved up to U18 yet. But what's your take on Oshawa, Schmitty? I'm a little bit more unfamiliar with them, so maybe you can tell the audience, you know, what they're about and what do you see them doing here in 2025?
we really want to highlight everybody, but I don't know too much about them. Obviously, we play against them. I like their organization. They got a great leader in their president, James Dungan, and he puts the best teams on the field that he possibly can. I'm curious because I haven't heard a lot of these, like those guys that you mentioned. There were a good half a dozen of those guys that were impact players on that U14 team. I know the following year they went up to U16, but I haven't really heard much from those players since. So I know. And we can touch on this on a later episode, but I know some of the coaches from the Oshawa team did make a jump over to the Durham Dolphins. So I'm wondering if they're going to bring if some of those players are also going to be coming as well. However, that's a different division. We'll talk about that later. Right. Maybe if that's the case at the U18 as well, where some of those players migrated over to the Dolphins. I'm not too sure about that either. But I wish them success. I think again they're always a few players away from contending every single year, and if they get those guys and they have the solid coaching that they had in the past, they could be a team to really think about.
Yeah, and they gave Essex all they could handle in week 1 last year at this age group, which I thought was very interesting. It just shows you the parity and kind of the any given Sunday approach. But I think this is probably the perfect opportunity here, Schmitty, with our last 3 teams being from that GTA area. How important is it for these 4 clubs in the East, specifically Brampton, Scarborough, Oshawa, and Durham? I mean, that's a recruiting war in itself, man. How important is it, just for these programs to get the players? Half the battle is probably done in the preseason before you even get on the field, because you're thinking, there's X amount of players and there's only, X amount of spots. So, how important are those recruiting battles in the GTA?
I think it's so important. I mean, we talked about earlier, and I mentioned it. Some of the teams here in Ottawa about hitting high schools and all that. And I really, really hope that some of these OSFL coaches, they knew that they were going to be coming on in 2025. I like to think that they were hitting the high school circuit there in September, October, November to really talk to these players that are eligible to play for them, because there is an absolute wealth of talent in the GTA. A lot of the teams, the high school teams that are championship high school teams out in this GTA are in those regions, and there should be no reason why some of these players are not playing for these teams. I mean, if you're a player on a championship high school team, you're a certified baller. You'll be able to compete very, very well at the OSFL league, and I hope that these coaches really tap into some of that excellent talent that is in that GTA high school leagues.
Yeah, absolutely. One last thing on Oshawa before we move on to Brampton a little bit more in depthly. Do love their logo and their color scheme. Something about it. I love the light blue like that. It pops on the field for me. So that's one thing I'll say about them.
I like, what I like that they did a couple of years ago is they adopted that silver metallic, almost that shiny silver.
Right, yeah.
On their helmets with the logo on the side, little a la Oregon Ducks a little bit, but
yeah.
Hey, what did Deion Sanders say? You look good, you feel good, you play good.
That's it, man.
And you get paid. So if everybody has that mentality, hey, who knows what'll happen, right?
For sure. Yeah, very pristine color scheme there for Oshawa. But yeah, let's move on. Let's move on to Brampton here, Schmitty, because I know we got a little bit more to touch on with Brampton and some more of that high school inclusion. But the Bulldogs finished 1-7 last season. Obviously not the season they were looking for. But this is a team just 2 years ago, won a U18 AAA Tier 2 title, and I was able to be at that game in Windsor. And they had a very talented roster. I know both of the coaches from that staff are still on this staff, so you've seen the growth with these coaches, and they take a lot of pride in their Brampton football, man. Coach Shake and Coach Rob. They've been great for that organization, obviously winning a title at the U18 level. This is their second year back in the AAA division. What do you see out of them, Schmitty? And maybe give us some of that information that you've had with the high schools and stuff down there.
Well, so you're right. They were a highly competitive team at the AA, and it is a transition to go from AA to AAA. And let's call it that. Last year, let's call that a transition year. For them to the coaches to return and have such high hopes is interesting. One thing that I noticed from their team, they're doing things a little bit unorthodox from what is traditional. I think they have two head coaches. You mentioned Nathaniel Griffith, one of their coaches, or Coach Shake as the players call him, and I think his focus is going to be on the offense. And they have another coach in Robinson Akatede. I hope I'm saying that right. Coach Rob, as he calls him, which is going to be focusing on the defense. And then they have an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator as well. So a little bit of a different approach to them. And one thing I also noticed, we talked about having an NFL presence with the Durham Dolphins. This team has a CFL presence with veteran CFL quarterback Brandon Bridge, who is on their staff working with the quarterback. So it's one of those. It's a position that not often gets the coaching that they deserve. Not everybody is a quarterback coach, and it's very precise. So to have a coach like that is huge, And this team is right in the center of two very, very competitive high school programs. I know that several of their commits are coming from the St. Roch Ravens high school program, which are just recently the 2024 Metro Bowl champions. Yeah, so they have that winning culture to pick from, and then they also have a bunch of commits coming from Robert F. Hall, the Wolfpack, and they were a Tier 2 high school team. But they're winners, They won. They over the past 5 years, they've either been in the game or they've won the game at the championship. So to have two championship high school programs in your backyard to recruit from, I'm thinking this team can put something together on the field and compete and definitely transition into off their record from last season in 2024.
Yeah, and I've followed those coaches on social media. They have a lot of passion for Bulldogs football. Like they take this thing seriously. And Schmitty, I seen you put a note in there actually of Brampton. They've gotten started earlier than like any other club. I noticed
that. Yeah, I noticed that. I was looking through their socials and I noticed that they opened up their winter camp January 4th. Which I mean, is only 3 days after when the signing day opens, right? Yeah. So to me, logically thinking, these guys already had their players last year. They're already ready to go. Their commits are already committed to their team. That's why they opened so early. So come January 1st, all these players registered, and January 4th, all these players are coming out to the first thing. So it sounds like Coach Shake and Coach Rob. They got their stuff in order, and if they can take that momentum and put something strong on the field come May.
You never know.
You never know.
You never know, and we'll get to our predictions a little bit later, but that could be a sleeper team. We'll see where our brains are at, Schmitty. Neither of us have talked about our predictions at all here, so this will be a fun exercise coming up. But we do have one more team to touch on, and that's the Scarborough Thunder. I think we can kind of echo the same sentiment with Oshawa. They got to get better. They got to win those recruiting battles in the Greater Toronto area. We've seen Durham really get a stranglehold on that, specifically at this age group at the U18 in recent years. So we'll see if Scarborough can return to the juggernaut that they were when they were the Toronto Thunder back in the OVFL days. They had some wicked talent on those teams. What do you think they need to do, Schmitty? Is it kind of the same thing as Oshawa and Brampton, or is there something different there, you think, in the Scarborough region?
I think you're the same thing. I think you're on the right path there. What surprised me a little? I was kind of going through some of the social media of the Scarborough Thunder. They have a ton of players, of alumni, I'll say, that are in the CFL and in the NFL.
Oh yeah.
I would even hazard a guess the most out of any team in the OSFL. So, I mean, there's that that culture of excellence of getting players to the next level is there. And it has been there for the better part of the last decade. So what do they need to do to keep that going, build off that momentum, tap into the past, and build for the future and for this season? So, the foundation is there. I know their president, Mike Fascione, he wants to win. He's a great guy. Solid dude to talk to. I know he wants to put together top programs at each level. I don't know the challenges that he has, but if there's anybody that could go through them, it's him and his guys. So putting some talent on the field when it comes to the coaching, I think is going to be a top priority. And if we can tap into that legacy of excellence and development that they have had over the years, and sort of bring that to full face value, I think that they can do something.
Yeah, I think that was my biggest thing whenever we're doing these researches is like, a cool story I have of the Thunder. My second ever OVFL game for the Wildcats, I think I was 15 or 16 because we got the younger players up there. There's no U14, U16 program for the summer for Cornwall. I remember playing Toronto, and I was playing offense, but their offense was on the field. They had a left tackle. He must have been 6'9", 360 pounds, and I was thinking, what team are we playing right now? Yeah. And it's the Toronto Thunder helmets. They got the Thunder, and I'm like, this is sketching me out, man. So
they're intimidating. I've played them many, many, many times, and if there's one thing about Scarborough that you're going to get is it's going to be a tough game. They're never going to quit. They want to come and metaphorically punch you in the mouth. That's their game plan, and when it works, it works. And you always got to be prepared as a coach and as a player to go into that environment, or for them to come to your house and be ready to play a tough game. They're going to come out in the first few series and exactly what I said, metaphorically try to punch you in the mouth and take as much clock, field, and points as they possibly can.
Yeah. No, it'll be interesting to see what Scarborough can do, Schmitty, but really appreciate you jumping on here and breaking through for these teams, but I got one more thing for you to do, and we're going to do our predictions here, Schmitty. And I think we're going to kick off with you. What we're going to do here, folks, is Schmitty's going to give his number one team, his record, maybe a few tidbits on how he thinks that team's going to perform, why he thinks they're going to be where they are, and then I'm going to go for the second team, so on and so forth, just so we don't ramble on doing both of our lists. I think this will be a fun exercise, so without further ado, Schmitty, who wins the regular season East, I guess we could say. We could talk about playoffs a little bit as well. But who's your number one team?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard to go against Durham. It really is. I mean, with Coach Burt saying how much he values his defensive line, that's a big deal. If they can put pressure on opposing offenses consistently, that's gonna shore up their defense. Having 4 quarterbacks come into camp and compete is going to be a difference maker. Having coaches on their staff that are dedicated to the success of the team is a difference maker. Returning receivers, difference makers. Veteran presence, difference maker. It's going to be hard to knock off Durham until we're proven wrong, and that could happen. So Durham, in my opinion, is going to be the top team in the East this year.
And what do you think the record would be in a 7-game schedule? 7-0. Look at that. I love that, Schmitty. I love it. It's tough to argue with that. The only thing I'll do here to play devil's advocate, that quarterback position. I mean, it's the most important position on the field, for a single position anyways. And we're just going to have to see, if they can get, even 75 to 80% of what Castleman gave them last year, or if we're just shocked and they have another Ben Castleman who comes in and starts, you never know, right? But I think that'll be the real telltale sign to see if they can repeat and have the same success as last year. Obviously, they bring back a lot of their receivers, a lot of their talent on defense. They have these excellent coaches, Coach Burt Smith, a lot of pride in that organization. That's my only thing is, a little nervous about losing, their star player. But I'm with you. It's going to be tough to contend with them. 7-0. That would be tough to run the slate. And obviously they have to play Kingston this year as well, which they didn't play last year. But I do like that pick, Schmitty. But let's move on to mine. So my number 2, TYSN's number 2, we'll say. it's tough to go against Kingston here, but I just believe in the Wildcats culture, man. Give me the Cornwall Wildcats to finish number 2 in this division. I just think that the culture that they have with Coach Laponte and a lot of their returning playmakers, the Camplins coming back from CJEP, Coleman McIntyre, a standout receiver in the Ottawa region, coming down, playing Cornwall football. Obviously, we mentioned kicker Zach Oban, and one of the cool things about Cornwall is they always find these guys that nobody else knew about that are like in these little areas in the Eastern Ontario region that come down and they just coach them up, man. I know at the Benson Center in Cornwall, they're there every weekend getting right. They go to their mini camp later in the year when the spring comes. So give me my Wildcats. Give me the Cornwall Wildcats to finish second in this division, and we'll go modest here at a nice 5-2 record. You like that? What's your devil's advocate to the Wildcats at number 2?
Yeah, you know what? You are right. They have a knack at finding these players and getting the best out of them, and I don't disagree with you at all. My number 2 pick, though, I gotta go with my hometown, my love, Cumberland Panthers. I honestly think that they're just a totally revamped team. And they have a lot of university commits already that I feel are going to bring a presence that team missed last year to this year's team. And I think the coaching staff revamp is going to be an injection of new energy and new passion into that team. I'm going to go with them at number 2, and I'm going to say they're going to finish with a 7-1 record.
A 6-1 record. Okay.
Yeah,
so far we both have Durham number 1, Cornwall, Cumberland, and then number 3. I think we'll probably both be in agreement on this. But I got Kingston at number 3 here, Schmitty. I think Kingston, as much as we talked about, even we just did it. We just overlooked them a little bit by not putting them in number 2. Neither of us put them at number 2. And this is the same story, same song and dance every year with the Grenadiers. People overlook them, and then at the end of the season, they're 5-0, and you're thinking, why did we overlook them? They've beaten everybody. I think that culture, you can echo the same sentiment as Cumberland, as Cornwall, as Myers. They just take pride in football in Kingston. That's the only place to go play football when you're in Kingston. So a lot of these guys, they know what's the task ahead of them. They play high school against each other, and then they say, "Hey, band of brothers, let's go win an OSFL provincial championship." Are you in agreement?
I'm in totally agreement with that. I think you're spot on. As for the record, I think it's going to be 5-2 is going to be their record.
I like that.
I think that week 1 matchup against Cumberland's going to Kingston. I think that is going to be easily the week 1 game of the week in the East for sure. And then I think it's going to be a tough venture when they play Durham as well.
Absolutely, I can't wait to see that matchup because we were robbed of that matchup last season, which sucked. But okay, so we both have Kingston at our number 3 spot. So at number 4, who do you have at number 4, Schmitty?
For me, at number 4, I think it's going to be a toss-up, and I think these two teams are going to be very equally matched, and there might even be a tiebreaker for this 4th spot. I think it's going to go between Cornwall and Myers. I think that their rosters are going to be very similar. I think that their coaching staff is very similar. I think that they have some great veteran coaches that have coached at very high levels. I forgot to mention about Myers' defensive corner being Ron O'Mara, who has shown some played in the CFL, played university ball, coached with Carleton University, and I believe still coaches with Carleton in some sort of a smaller capacity. So these two teams have veteran coaches that have coached at very high levels. So I think they're very, very similar, and I would not be surprised if there was a tiebreaker for that last playoff spot between those two teams.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting because this number 4 spot is that cutoff for the playoffs for the Tier 1 playoffs. So it'll be very interesting who gets that spot. So who are you going with? Who's your pick?
Yeah, I think they're gonna go to a tie, and I think.
So it'll be the regular season matchup.
I think
right?
A regular season matchup tie, but I think that Cornwall might have the edge on this one.
Okay, so are you saying that they're both going to be going 4-3?
I think 4-3 is the record. Yeah.
4-3. Okay, perfect. Yeah, well,
those crucial matchups will be against each other.
Exactly.
And will be against Kingston and Cumberland.
And Cumberland.
So,
yeah.
a win against those two teams and a win against each other, that's going to be a major game. I can't remember when the two of them play which week, but that again could possibly be a game of the week, right?
Yeah, those
lots of playoff implications.
Yeah, those teams lumped together, I think it's all going to come down to the head-to-head matchups. And my number 4 team is going to be the Cumberland Panthers. I haven't said them yet. I think that maybe I'm kind of the same way with you as Myers and Cornwall. My same approach is with Myers and Cumberland. I think that these two teams, it's going to come down to these two teams playing. I think they both finish similarly with 4-3 records. And I just think Cumberland, if whoever their quarterback ends up being, and having the new head coach in Tony, I just think that their trajectory is going up. And I think this is the year that they get into they've been in the Tier 1 playoffs the last 2 years as that number 4 seed, and they've played some good games in those quarterfinals. They've lost both, but I think they stay there this season and maybe even look for them to upset a West team in that round 1 of the playoffs. I think the East is coming for it this year and really putting a lot of talent on display. But give me Cumberland at number 4 at 4-3, and then I'll also piggyback that by saying number 5 Myers at 4-3.
Yeah. Hey, you're not wrong about Cumberland. Hey, I put them higher just as I know a little bit of the
for sure, yeah.
But make no mistake, if they don't gel and they don't they don't have those veteran presence in the leadership, they could be easily 4-3 for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so we have the same top 4, a little bit different arranged. Mm-hmm. So let's both just do our bottom 3 in one shot. I'll start with you. Who rounds out the bottom 3, and who do you think out of that bottom 3 that we're going to be talking, or bottom 4 that we're going to be talking about, whatever it is, who do you think might give the most problems and can actually maybe, if things go right and they gel, can maybe even get into that top 4?
Yeah, I think that Brampton is going to be the top of those guys. They should handle Scarborough and Oshawa, I think, and I'm just going based off of what we see and what we didn't get from those other two teams. But they could easily come into a game against Myers, Cornwall, Panthers, Kingston, and give them a run for their money. And so I have no doubt about that. Can they win and can they do that? Are they veteran enough? Can they handle some of these veteran teams that have a lot of those 2006 players? Who knows? But listen, they can be pesky. They could be that team that comes in and upsets. So they are my top of the bottom 3.
So it's number 6.
Yeah, number 6. But they could easily be a number 5 and maybe even compete for that 4th if they come against some good teams. So
especially if they have the St. Rock players, and if those players gel, like, we'll have to see. They might even be competing for a top 3 spot. That's what's so interesting about the OSFL. We don't really know. Like, all we can go off of is what we see and the players that we know. But every season's different, man. That's why we love this sport. So you got Brampton at numbers. You got Brampton at number 6 at a what record are you going to give them?
Brampton, I think, is going to be 3-4.
That's a big step up.
Which could easily be 4-3 or 5-2.
Yeah. Coin flips, right? Yeah. And then your final 2, we'll just rattle them off quickly here.
Yeah, I think Oshawa and then Scarborough to round it out. I think they both might have a 1 or 2 win season against somebody, but it's going to be tough to compete against those teams. So unfortunately, I'm looking at them to probably have another 1 or 2 win season at best, unless they prove wrong and they have information that they didn't give us, which I hope is true. They can compete with some of the players that are out there in the province. So.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there, and I it's tough to put any teams at the bottom, right? In the preseason, especially, we haven't seen them play, so we could come out looking like fools. But all we could do is base it off of the last couple of seasons, and from my purview, I'd love to see all these teams go 3-4 and beat up on each other. You know what I mean? That'd be awesome.
What can you couldn't ask for a better provincial football if that's the case. If you got two or three teams that are finishing with 2 or 1 or even 0 wins, I mean that's not great. But
right.
If you can get teams that are consistently 3 wins, 4 wins, 5 wins, if that happens, man, we got something special here in Ontario when it comes to football. We got competition and we got we got games, and that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, 100% I'm with you. So my round out would be I'm with you with Brampton. I think this is the year they take a step forward. I also have them at 3-4, and like you said, a couple of games in there, who knows what can happen. The only difference I have Scarborough finishing ahead of Oshawa. I haven't seen too much news come out of Oshawa. I think they're losing their key star tailback, so I think that'll be big on them, and I think the Thunder might take a little bit of a step forward. So I have the Thunder ahead of them just slightly. Give me the Thunder at 1-6, and unfortunately Oshawa at 0-7 to round that out. Yep. But there you go, folks. There's our OSFL U18 AAA East breakdown heading into the season. Obviously, teams are in the thick of their preseasons now. There's our predictions. There's everything you need to know from a TYSN perspective. Stay tuned for our next episodes of these. We got the U18 AAA West coming up with special guest Adam Melrose from London Football TV, and then Schmitty will be joining me here once again for the U16 and U14 AAA East. Schmitty, what are your closing thoughts? Once again, I want to thank you so much for joining us, spending the last hour and 15 minutes with me breaking this down. I know you're a busy guy and everything, but I know how much you love football and talking football with us. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It allows me to kind of stay in the game without being so deep into the game, and it's awesome. I'm really looking forward to being on the other side of the field and watching some of this amazing football that we have in our province. Good luck to the teams, good luck to the coaches,
yep.
Good luck to everybody in the U18 East on their seasons. I'm wishing everybody a successful season, a healthy season. Get your players right, make sure that they're healthy so that they're able to compete for the entire year. Last thing I hate to see is when guys get injured, and it makes for a tough go. So happy, healthy season, and all the best to all the teams.
I echo the same sentiment, Schmitty. Good luck to all the teams. We can't wait to watch OSFL football in 2025. Comment down below too. Tell us what you think your predictions are. If we missed out on some of the teams and the players and some sleeper players and maybe some sleeper teams that we're not privy to, let us know in the comments below. Let us know whoever you're cheering for this season in the OSFL. But yeah, once again, thank you to Mike Schmidt for joining us on this episode. Good luck to all the teams. This was Touchdown Ontario's off-season spotlight series here on TYSN presented by Football Ontario. We'll catch you next time. Thank you, everybody.